Hello, everybody. I don't know if I'm streaming just yet. Okay, there we go. It's starting. So, hey, everybody. Here we are. I'm here today with Miss Tracie Strunsee. We're going to be talking a little bit about these emails that were recently obtained by some of these very tenacious Redditors we got out there. I love these guys. But, you know, they're getting real good at refining their process for making their FOIA requests. And they're really starting to pull some gems. You know, from what I understand, it's a very difficult process because they can deny you on just little stupid things, and so apparently there's a verbal dance or a linguistic dance you really got to do to get the right things to pop out. You know, it's almost like having secret, almost like incantations, like if it's magic or something. But no, anyways, just kidding. But no, they have been getting some interesting stuff, and so some of that interesting stuff, like what we're going to talk about today, is a couple of emails between Kratz and Fallon right at the time when Brendan was appearing in the 7th Circuit Court. It was the 3-judge panel, right?
This was the en banc.
Oh, that was the... Oh, okay, so it was the en banc hearing.
Oh, I think it was.
Because...
Wait, was the
no,
first one?
because in the email it says no. If we get the same ones that did the denial of the whatever, right?
The en banc was also in the ceremonial courtroom, whereas the other one was in the smaller courtroom. So yes, this was for the en banc. That's what I thought, but
this is the 3-panel judge, right?
No, this is the en banc because it was, like I said, it was in the ceremonial courtroom where that was not the case for the original oral arguments.
Right. Okay. Well, it's weird.
At least I believe. I mean,
something in the wording of the email. Pardon us, folks, while we kind of hash this out a second. But
I thought that Brendan's first one was in October.
If we get the same judges that did the denial of his... Remember they filed a motion to release Brendan and all that? And there was the... What do they call it? It's a special panel.
It was the motion to stay. Yeah, it was the motion to stay his release. But that, I don't... They could still be referring to that.
So one of them in this email, I remember at one point says, if we get the same 3 judges... that did the denial of the release, then we're in good shape. And I agree, they would have been in damn good shape if they got those 3 judges, because that's the what's his name, the guy that didn't talk during the en banc, Hamilton, Hamilton, and then grumpy old grandpa who like generally when he talks sounds like he's getting woken up from a nap.
I'm trying to remember because one was in October and one was Valentine's Day, and I can't remember which is which now. I was at both of them, and I can't remember. And I thought it was the first one at first, but then when they said it was moved to the ceremonial courtroom, the en banc was in the ceremonial courtroom. So I don't know.
Right.
I can look. I can look it up.
We'll determine it at some point.
I can look it up.
It's not really super important. Either event, these emails are very interesting. So just let me say hi, everybody. Hi, I see everybody out there saying hi. So hello, how you doing? You know, glad everybody could be here. And so these, I'm gonna say first off, if you guys want to go check these things out on your own, go check out Redditor JJax. He did a post about this yesterday. Brilliant. So if you want to go check that out. You know, the Redditors in this case are doing a stellar job, and really, I mean, these particular emails are very interesting. You can tell AC over there on Twitter is really getting on Ken's nerves. Ken is starting to fray under the pressure from AC. And for those of you who don't know who AC is the guy that had the talk with Kratz for convicting a murderer, and that's where we got that gem from Kratz about what does he need a coroner for? A coroner just comes in and kicks the body. So we got some Redditors out there really, really stirring it up and pulling out some very interesting, you know, things and getting some very interesting statements, particularly like out of Kratz. So this email is around the time of one of Brendan's hearings at the 7th Circuit Court, and it basically is just Ken Kratz wanting to be involved. He's just, you know, very keen to be involved, and it's an email from Ken Kratz to Thomas Fallon, and I'll just read it to you right now. They're pretty short. First starts out Ken Kratz, and he says, "Tom, first I would like to attend the arguments in Chicago on 2/14, so that would be Valentine's Day. Is there something I need to do to arrange seats? I'm quite certain Tom Fassbender wants to join me. Second, as the argument may be incredibly fact specific, I am asking that Fassbender and I be invited to participate in the mock argument. I'm sure your internal. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sure you intend to do at the DOJ. I have to believe that almost nobody knows more about these two cases at the moment, with me just completing my book, and we just want to make sure that any precaution is taken with whomever is doing the argument, that they know the blind spots in the case. Now, I think the term blind spots being used is very interesting, but we'll get to that in a minute. Let me finish reading it. Third, I have every expectation that the state will prevail in federal court, and the conviction of Dasi will be maintained. Assuming that occurs, is there any thought for what DOJ intends to do with Dasi? In other words, my belief is that some adjustment to his sentence may be reasonable. After you win the appeal, if that is to be considered, I very much want to be part of that process. Obviously, I have no official input that I can give, but respect to me and to the 10-plus year process, recognizing the outcome of these two cases will forever define my career. I at least want to be heard prior to a deal being cut. Okay? Yeah. Whew. Man, this guy is something else. Thanks for your consideration. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're line. Go
ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hold on. Thanks for your consideration. I assume you may wish to discuss these requests I have made with your boss, Brad Schimmel, and will make myself available at your convenience. Ken. So that's the email. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I forgot there was more to that, because I just figured that he was done talking about himself, so that was the end of it.
Right.
Sorry. So anyway,
to be courteous in the final sentence.
I double-checked, and it was the first oral arguments, and then I looked back at the email, and the reason people probably not knowing what the heck I'm talking about is because I have another email that is at the end of that chain, and that's where Fallon says that it's been moved to the ceremonial courtroom. And that's why it confused me then, because the 3-panel was not in the ceremonial courtroom. The en banc was. Right. So maybe he told Kratz that so he'd go to the wrong courtroom. I don't know. But it was the 3-judge panel. Yes, you're right. It was. So okay. That's what I thought at first. But then when I saw the ceremony, I was like, oh, I must have my dates wrong. But it was with the first panel.
So, all right. So so obviously there's something you feel that, I mean, do you want to move to the Fallon response, or do you want to talk about like the implications of Kratz's statement there regarding Brendan?
Well, I think we should, let's just get to this first because I already had to take notes, because I would already forget everything I was talking about. So I kind of took notes just to make sure I don't forget. Right. So probably best to do it. So
yeah, we can go to Fallon's email after you bring up this point, because this is the point. This is why everybody's here. This is why you showed up to watch this video.
This is why I showed up. And I was thinking too, remember when we first saw this, I had said, because the first part of it was about seating, and I said, well, if there was seating, why the hell did he have to get sat right in front of me? And that was in the 3-judge one. So that was obviously what I was thinking. And then it was when I saw that other email. So anyway, but that was my first thought. Funny thing. That was my first thought. My first thought was, well, if there was any like organized seating, why the hell did I have the bad luck of having to sit behind that man and Leah?
Because you didn't have an in to get a different seat, right?
No. So that was my very first thought. And then, of course, my second thought was immediately, the minute I saw those words, some adjustment to his sentence may be reasonable.
Right.
I didn't even notice anything else. I really didn't, because that just jumped out to me right away. And I was like, did he seriously just say that? And I didn't know that it was a Reddit post at this point. And it wasn't until after, I asked you or Paul, one of you, about it. And then I went to Reddit, and I saw there's like 40 comments, and all everyone's talking about is the fact that, oh, what a narcissist, this and that and everything. And I was like,
well, he is, but
yeah. And I was like, well, and the first thing I thought was, well, yeah, but we know that already. That's not the important part.
That's not new news.
This is the important stuff. Why is nobody else saying this? Okay, so I have to start kind of at the beginning to make sure everybody understands this. Now, Brendan has not filed petition for post-conviction relief at the state level yet. And that is, again, a 97406, which is the same type of petition that Steve has already filed.
Right.
That is considered, for the most part, that is Wisconsin's version of a federal habeas petition. We still actually do have a state habeas petition, but it's for something very specific. So in general, the 97406 is our state petition dealing with constitutional issues. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I've said this before, but for anybody who doesn't usually watch me, this is not considered an appeal. We kind of lump it in together as an appeal, but this is not an appeal. This is what's considered collateral review. Okay, and the reason it's called collateral review because it's not the claims aren't attacking the verdict itself. It's attacking issues collateral to the verdict, meaning constitutional issues, procedural issues, things like that.
Right.
Okay, so that's why you need new evidence to be able to present these. So what a 97406 actually is, instead of calling it an appeal, it is actually considered a motion for sentence modification.
Okay.
That is what it's meant to be. We don't really consider that because we hardly ever talk about it that way. But that is actually what it is. It's considered a motion for sentence modification, and you're moving the court to either vacate or set aside the sentence and in turn the conviction, or you're asking them to modify the sentence,
right?
To actually adjust it. Now, there have been times when prisoners have filed this, they have gotten a sentence modification, and they've been given more time than they originally were. Because you essentially have another sentencing proceeding. Right. And if you get a judge that thinks, nope, I don't think you got enough time, you have no say in that. So there is a little bit of a risk with that. Mm-hmm. In Brendan's case, I don't think there would be, because I think there's no way, they gave him the maximum allowed, I think, due to his age.
Right.
Okay, so all that being said, that's why when he said, the first thing he said was about adjusting the sentence.
The fact that it's called a motion for post-conviction relief, I mean, it leaves it open enough to mean, okay, yeah, I can see where it could,
Yeah, it's a petition for post-conviction relief, but what it actually
is... What form that relief takes could be...
Is a motion, is a motion for sentence modification, because you're essentially saying that the sentence that I've been given is constitutionally unfair.
Right.
And sometimes people aren't really questioning, this is why, again, it's collateral review, because sometimes people aren't fighting their conviction, they're fighting that their sentence was too harsh for the crime they committed, and that's why they're asking for sentence modification.
Right. So that would be a form of relief. So, Mm-hmm. So, right, that's how it fits under the umbrella. I get it.
Right.
I think a lot of people probably get it. Sharon thinks it's interesting.
Thanks, Sharon. As long as two people find this interesting, I'll feel that my night was well spent. Okay, so...
She also wants to know if Ken smelled sweaty at the 3 p.m. But anyway.
Leo was stroking his back the entire time. It just grossed me out. It took everything to not puke over both of them, so whatever. I was definitely heaving behind them. Oh, gross. Anyway, yeah, that's what I was doing. And if I had some distance on it, I could have hit some of the reporters too. So let's see. Okay.
Yep.
So
everybody's very interested. So all right, here we go.
Okay. So when Kratz said those words about an adjustment to the sentence would be reasonable, okay, that is a big thing for him to say.
Yeah.
Because the main thing, if Steve and Laura present this petition and the relief they're asking for is the conviction to be overturned, number one, but if they also say in the alternative,
right,
that his sentence should be modified, it is going to be a lot harder for the state to argue that he doesn't deserve a lighter sentence when the prosecutor just flat out said it's not unreasonable for him to get a shorter sentence.
Right. Yeah.
So those can have some big implications, and that's why I asked Jay Jacks, I'd asked him right away, I said that, is there anything in Fallon's emails that are stating anything similar? because it's good that Kratz said it. It would be great if the person,
assistant attorney general said it.
Said it.
Yeah.
Because what they're going to do is, once they make their argument saying that Brendan does not deserve to be in prison for this long, whatever he's served, whatever argument they make, the state is going to come back and say, just like they did in the confession, they're going to say he's a violent rapist and murderer and he should not be released. He's a danger to society. They're going to use all those arguments because they don't want him to be released.
Right.
And then again, how do you make that argument when the prosecutor is saying, oh, it's not reasonable to give him a lesser sentence?
Right.
It could be a huge thing. I mean, it could be a huge deal. Now,
well, look at the way they're shooting themselves in the foot constantly at this point. I mean, yeah, we gave the whole box animal bones, so we didn't violate statute. So that's it. That's all done. No,
and then,
that ain't all done.
No. And then there are a lot of further inferences that can be made from this. Now, generally, the court doesn't always love inferences. I think we learned this from Kathleen's motions, with Steve. But one of the inferences that can be made is that, just look at it logically. Why would any prosecutor think it's reasonable to lessen the sentence of a rapist and murderer?
Right.
They wouldn't. So therefore, it can be inferred that he doesn't really believe that Brendan did that Brendan is guilty of those crimes.
Right.
It's very similar to what we've been saying about the bones. The inference is, since the state gave the bones back, that they must have thought they were Teresa's. Because why would you give bones back that didn't belong to the Hallbach, to Teresa Hallbach, to the Hallbach family?
Right.
It's the same type of thing. It's saying, like,
and
why would he be...
They were so desperate for the jury to really not hear much about or to really not think about that and not talk about those bones over there, because they were afraid the jury would go 1 and 1 equals 2.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And that you can draw a similar inference here. You can say that. Why would a prosecutor...
Right? It's like before trial, the reports all say one thing. You obviously know that these prosecutors know of these reports because they actually use them when they go to give the bones back. But before trial, it's like clearly they suspect those bones are human because they're burned to the same exact calcine level as all the ones in the burn barrel and in the burn pit. So they clearly think those are connected, and they make that connection. But then as soon as after trial, it's like that, at trial, it's like, no, but those aren't. We cannot say that those are human bone in any way. It's like, so suddenly for trial, the story is, no, they're not. That way it doesn't hurt our case. And then as soon as trial's over, it's right back to, yeah, we think those are human again, and that's why they're giving them back to the Hallbachs in 2011. So, yeah, it's bizarre, but they're clearly flip-flopping.
Right. And that's why I said a similar inference could be made here to say, because again, just think about it. Kratz has repeatedly said that this confession is solid and that Brendan confessed to rape. He's a rapist and he's a murderer, and he contributed just as much as Steve did. And if he's saying that, then why would he be saying it's reasonable to give him a lesser sentence?
Right.
Because he shouldn't be saying that. If he truly believes he is a vicious rapist and murderer, he shouldn't be saying that.
Right. And most prosecutors won't. Hey, look at Nancy Grace, folks.
Now, they could give an argument that...
Have you watched her new show, by the way? Anyway, sorry.
Oh, hell no. Hell no. They could make an argument saying that Kratz was specific in the email and said that it would be reasonable to offer it if they lose, like if Brendan wins and the confession is thrown out. Okay, he could say that it's reasonable. It was under those circumstances alone that he's saying it was reasonable. But I have an issue with that too. I can always find an argument for anything. But the argument is that Ken Kratz himself, again, his own words, he was the one that was saying publicly several times that they had other statements made by Brendan that could be used against him and that they could retry him again. He acted like it was no big deal if they threw out the confession because they had still plenty of evidence against him that they could retry him. Mm-hmm. So then again, answer this then. So then why in this email does Kratz not say a word about whether they're going to retry the case or not? Why isn't Kratz saying, hey, can I be involved in the decision when it comes to whether you retry or have to offer him a deal because, I know the facts, blah, blah, blah. Right. Why isn't he saying that? Or why isn't he asking, are you going to retry him? There is nothing about any of that. The first thing Kratz turns to is a deal.
Yeah.
Why would you do that if you actually thought that you had a case? And then again, the implication there is that Kratz knew that the confession was the entire case. That without the confession, they knew they could never retry him. Right. But that's not what he was saying. So for them to say, hey, this would only be if they lost, well, yeah, he's saying that. But again, that's not really the point of what he's saying. He's saying that he didn't even try to talk to them about any other options. Mm-hmm. If they lost, it was going to be, hey, like, we need to offer him a deal. That's the first thing Kratz went to. He didn't have any other conversation about anything.
Yeah, it's very strange. And then to talk about the blind spots. Let's talk about the blind spots. Because that, I mean, I don't know. I have, I guess, a lot of speculation about what he might have been referring to about the blind spots. I mean, one of them may be like, I don't know how much of a blind spot it is, because I would think walking into a case, it would be a pretty obvious one, but no physical evidence against Brendan. You know, like, is that one thing that he might be referring to possibly? You know.
Well, in this situation, like I said, it certainly strengthens the argument that the confession was the entire case.
Yeah.
From what he's saying. I mean, he's strengthening that even he knows the physical evidence doesn't match up. Now, one thing I do need to say about this, though, is that we already talked about the fact that a 97406 is to do with constitutional issues. This is not a constitutional issue. This entire thing is going to go into the arguments about whether there should be a modification of his sentence, whether it be overturning the conviction or modifying the sentence. So this isn't a claim itself. This is an argument that they're going to say that, well, now you're trying to say that
to bolster
he deserves to be in prison for the rest of his life, whereas the prosecutor was saying, like, nah, it's reasonable to just let him go. So that's an important distinction there. This is not an actual claim. This is going to be an argument for them to make to basically show the court that this sentence is unfair. No, I'm going to say one last thing about it before I forget. Or actually two things, but then you can go back to that because you know I'm going to forget. Now, I'm saying that I'm not saying that Brendan's lawyers are going to use this, okay? There are actually some legit reasons why they wouldn't use it. Mm-hmm. The main one being that it would be a legitimate concern that if you give the court a lesser option or a less extreme option, they're going to take that over the more extreme option. Mm-hmm. Meaning, if you say his conviction should be overturned or his sentence should be vacated, or in the alternative, his sentence should be modified, well then, what's to stop the court from just saying, let's modify his sentence, instead of taking the more extreme action of vacating the conviction?
Instead of setting things right.
Now, technically, under the law, that shouldn't matter. Because the law is the law. Either his constitutional rights were violated or they weren't. Right. So that shouldn't matter, but I don't trust the courts. So it would be a very legitimate argument to say, like, oh, well, if you're going to hand them, kind of like, like an olive branch here and say, well, you can just modify his sentence, they may take that.
Right.
But they have to weigh that versus if you leave that out. First of all, you're taking a big gamble because you're not even putting that option on the table. And second of all, you can't go back and ask for that later.
Right.
All forms of relief that you're looking for have to be in, and we've learned this, the original, the supplemental, or amended petition.
Right.
They can't ask for a different form of relief in a subsequent petition unless they get more new evidence, which we know there's no guarantee of that at this point. Right. So it's going to be one of those things that they're going to have to decide. But I don't see how you leave it out, because the first priority is to get Brendan out of prison. Yes, we would all like to see him exonerated, get his conviction vacated.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, Steve and Laura, first and foremost, want him out of prison.
Right.
And work on the exoneration from home.
Basically, I've been thinking about that recently. It's like I feel Brendan is a powerful case to really bring about the criminal justice reform for the youth in our country that we need to make and everything. And he's a powerful, case for it and everything. But so I want to see the fight stuck out until the system comes to its knees and goes, okay, fine, we'll stop abusing children. Sorry, right? So I do want to see that, but at the same time, I don't want to see Brendan have to suffer in a cell the entire time. So it's like
when the alternative is 35 more years in prison, or 25 more years in prison, or however many years, I mean, that's a long time. This isn't like, well, you fight or you spend 5 more years. No,
that's what I mean. I get torn between it because but I don't want Brendan to have to suffer while that's happening, and it's
right.
And it's like tug of war with myself that I constantly kind of am going through. So I understand if they do get him out. I mean, ultimately, I do understand if they are able to get that route and get him out of prison, then that will be obviously acceptable. But ultimately, I hope they continue to work on it after that, so that they eventually bring this and other cases like it to a head, and the system finally just acknowledges what the hell's going on, and does something about it. So that's a big part of why I'm here, folks.
Right. Yeah, I have one last thing, and then I'm done for my part.
Okay.
Obviously, I'll weigh in on whatever you want, but this is the last thing I wanted to say, is that I know that a lot of people, especially the people that are on Twitter, like to tag Kratz and things and say, well, what are you going to say about this? Or how are you going to fight this? I like throwing these things in his face. This is not something I think anybody should be calling his attention to, mainly because he probably doesn't know that we have it. He probably forgot he even said it. Steve and Laura have not had the opportunity to even file this petition yet. We don't know when they're going to. And it's always in everyone's best interest, or Brendan's best interest and their best interest, to not give the state a huge heads up as to what we might be doing. And if you put that in there, or you call Kratz's attention to it, then he has a lot of time to make up excuses. The state could already start saying how we're going to argue against this, whatever, and they have a huge head start on this. And so, I mean, I'm fairly confident Ken Kratz is not going to be watching our video. Yeah. I'm fairly confident that, if he's trolling Reddit or whatever, who cares? Big deal. But I don't think he's going to be. I really don't. I think that when people tag him and call his attention to things, that's when he sees stuff.
Right.
So I'm just that, people are going to do what they're going to do, but I would suggest something like this should be kind of kept on the down low, especially since, and this is going to answer somebody's question, Rhonda's question. No, his attorneys did not know about this. Steve Drizzen did not know about this, but he does now.
Yeah. So
what he does with it, I don't know. But if he didn't know about it, then chances are it's not in discovery. It's not, or, the post-conviction discovery. Or it wasn't turned over. Well, I guess it wouldn't be because it was during the oral argument, so that's probably wouldn't be. But Kratz probably forgot he even said it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's those clever people out there on Reddit, folks, that are refining the process of making their FOIA requests, and they're getting good. They're pulling out some interesting stuff, and so I think it's only going to get better. Because these guys look shady. They look like they want to hide something. They look like they just want to shut up and hope this all goes away because they're afraid that it's going to blow up. That's the way they're acting. That's the way they're conducting themselves. So anyway, interesting stuff. So that's about it, unless you got a few more things you want to say. But I mainly just wanted to talk about this issue with you.
That was really it. I know people ask me about the FOIAs and why would they release this stuff, and I said, well, most of the time because they don't know it's there. They've forgotten. They've forgotten that they've said this. Or look at it. How many people I went on Reddit and like 40 people were commenting on it, and nobody talked about the legal implications, except for me.
Right.
Nobody else I think even picked up on it. And even when I posted it in the group, some people were like, I don't get what this has to do with Brendan. Why? I'm like, wait for the video. And then finally someone noticed that one line. Because there were lines highlighted in the email that was shared, but it wasn't that, and so nobody was really calling attention to it, and But to me, it stood out right away. But hell, that's what I do. This is what I do.
Yeah. Have you filed FOIA requests yourself in the past?
I've only filed the ones with the court. I've never filed ones with the sheriff's department or anybody else. And honestly, it's like most of the time I freak out about who I'm supposed to ask for what.
Right.
This did come up today, so I guess I should answer this right away, too. When it comes to FOIA requests, it's unfortunate, but the way the system is set up is that the request is responded to by whatever agency's records you are asking for.
Right.
So all these people that are making these FOIA requests are getting responses from Mark Wiegert for Calumet. Yeah. So these emails are coming from Mark Wiegert. There's other things that are coming from Wiegert, and he's the one that decides whether they get it or not.
Right.
And it seems pretty stupid that the person you're investigating is the one that's in charge of releasing this information.
Right.
Yes. So there is no way to know if they're keeping things from us, and there's already been some indication that things have been missing before, and there's nothing we can really do about it other than point it out and say, like, hey, well, why did the pages skip from this page to this page? What's in there?
Right.
And so it's really, and obviously when they talk about open records requests, this isn't the situation that anybody thought of really this being used for.
Yeah.
Usually it's other people just wanting to get information on a case or whatever for the news or for their personal, right. stuff, whatever. It's not because you're trying to prove that the organization is corrupt. Linda, what about the DOJ? Yes, the DOJ has been, and now they've done what I said today. I told Jay Jax, I said, I'm surprised that Calumet has given out as much as they have, because there are a lot of loopholes that can be used to get away around an open records request, and the DOJ has done exactly that. The DOJ has never given anything out, or not much, I don't think, and they've used one of those loopholes, which is essentially saying it's too big of a burden on our office. We don't have enough people to be able to basically make those copies and send them to you. So it's too big of a burden on our office, right. And so we're not going to send them to you. That is all they have to say.
Yeah, I've seen some of the denials and some of the reasons that they offer for their denials, and I agree. Yeah, they can be like super frivolous like that, or maybe not so super frivolous, but somewhat frivolous like that, where it's like, well, it is an office, right? You know, you have a machine there that would print it all out and collate it for you and all that, right? It's like, you know what I mean? So it's like, but anyway,
And then Tina's saying that it's the custodian of where you're submitting it to.
Exactly.
Yes, that's the person that's actually going to get the info.
Hello, Pub Tender. It's great to see you. Don't get to see you on my lives much, so it's great to have you stop by and comment. Sorry, go ahead.
But the letters they're getting back are from Mark Wiegert explaining why certain things haven't been turned over, or what they're getting these letters from Mark Wiegert. So he's aware of what's been requested, and he either approves it or he says no. And yes, he's not the one physically actually turning over the evidence.
Right.
So, yeah, but he knows what's going on.
Yeah, fully.
And there's a lot of times that his name is probably rubber stamped too. But I think in this case, I think it's possible that people have been informed to actually let him know before anything is released. I doubt he said, "Oh, go ahead, just send whatever they want and rubber stamp my name on it."
Yeah, right.
So I'm glad you could finally join us, Tina. Last time you caught like the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Always like Pub Tender, or Tina, obviously.
That's my Tina.
I don't talk to her as much nowadays as I used to, but I always did like Pub Tender.
She's my twin. My brain twin and my everything else twin.
Well, she's sharp as a tack. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it when she goes after Kratz.
Yeah.
She's quick to call Kratz on his BS, man. When he pulls out a piece of BS, man, she's on it. I love it.
That's why I said in my last video, I said that she's the one that reminds me about what I did know at one time. Even though I forget everything now, she reminds me if I actually knew it at one time or not.
Right.
Because we always know the same things. Or we did know all the same things.
She starts humming a few bars and it starts coming back to you.
Yeah. Sometimes she'll remind me. Yeah. She'll be like, remember this? I'm like, okay. And then sometimes I'm like, yeah, no clue. But I'm glad I knew it at one time. Thank you.
Oh. Right on. All right. So that's good news, I guess. It's some little more glimmer of hope for Brendan. I'll take all the good news for Brendan I can get, because, like I said, it's Brendan and in a bigger way, wrongful convictions of youth is a big reason why I'm here. Obviously, I have issues with the criminal justice system as a whole. Certainly don't like what's happened to Stephen. Certainly think that he's been railroaded, and everything. But really, when it's this stuff that, if we're able to do this to youth in our justice system, imagine what we will allow ourselves to get away with adults. If we can somehow fix our conscience to think that these things are okay, and that these kids can just sit in prison because we're too lazy to find out who actually did it, we'll just go find this mentally challenged kid and get him to confess to it. If that's going to be an acceptable way to act in our criminal justice system, That's a problem, and that's worrisome. And that's a big reason why I'm here. So any bit of good news for Brendan is good news and big news for me. So happy to be able to talk about it.
And I just said this to Paul before. I said that I put this in the interesting column. I don't want people to get too excited, like, oh, this can win for Brendan, this can do whatever. No, this is just like where I am saying this is very interesting, and it could have some potential implications. It depends on what his lawyers want to do with it. Sure. So don't get overly excited.
And hence why I refer to it as a glimmer, or a potential glimmer. So,
it's just another thing that is very, and anytime you can get, again, the prosecutor on the case to say something that goes completely against what they're trying to argue, it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's going to be a good thing.
If they end up going the way of sentence modification, it could be helpful to Brendan, certainly.
Right. Or if they just try to say, well, he's a vicious killer who needs to be kept in jail and he's a danger to society. You say, well, the prosecutor, the guy who actually put them in prison, doesn't think that's true, apparently. Right. So it's
or at least has some doubts.
Well, he's saying it's reasonable. It's reasonable to lower his sentence.
Right.
And again, it's very important that he put reasonable in there. If he would have worded any other way about, are you considering a deal? Like, what are you willing to offer? Nothing. I mean, it was just like he put the absolute perfect thing in there to make it something that could be possibly used by Brendan's attorneys.
Right. And, so that's good. That's obviously good. We're all in a holding pattern with Brendan, so if this could potentially help him, great. It's great news. But yes, obviously, don't get too carried away, folks, as Tracie cautions us, But log it, note it, realize it's there, and it's something that can be in Brendan's lawyer's cadre to be used at some later date. So, wow. So it's very interesting stuff. It's been a pleasure here to talking with you today about this, and happy we could do it. Tracie?
Yes, I'm here. I'm listening. I was trying not to interrupt for once.
Oh, no, I was just winding it up and just saying thank you for being here and that sort of stuff. So, and thank you everybody else, obviously, for being here in the live chat and taking part. It's good to have something new in the case to talk about, some new piece of, I don't know, maybe we call it minutia at this point, but because it is kind of minor, maybe at this point, but it's like I said, it's good to see things that could potentially help Brendan, and beyond that, it's good to see more of this kind of flip-floppy, wishy-washy kind of, some of these agents of the state and the way that they act and conduct themselves. And Ken Kratz is a good one. So like I said, being a prosecutor on the case, just like Tracie said, being a prosecutor on the case, to have an opinion that, a sentence reduction wouldn't be a bad thing. I could see where that could help in certain correct circumstances somewhere down the line. So that's the big takeaway for today, and glad y'all could be here. Thank you for being here, Tracie. And if you'd like to say goodbye to everybody before we go.
I will say thanks to everybody. I didn't expect to be doing a video, but as we were talking about this today, he's just like, you want to come on? And I was like, okay. And I didn't really feel like I wanted to take on the whole, like, oh, I'm going to do this by myself, even though I ended up talking the most anyway.
But that happened. People tuned in to watch us, by the way.
Yeah. And the last week I've been thinking about how I might want to do a Mindhunter video. I don't know. I keep going back and forth about it, so I'm toying with it. So maybe you'll see me do that, read up on it, or watch it, catch up on the show, just in case. Right. I'll probably give like a week's notice, and then I'll say, like, hey, I am going to do this. Catch up. You have a week to catch up. So that you might see me again. I love that show,
but I've still only watched the first season. I haven't watched the second one yet.
Believe it or not, this case stresses me out, but serial killers don't. Yeah. So I can actually talk about serial killers all day.
I'm the same way. Before I got into this, I would do a lot of research on that sort of stuff. In fact, I did a video about it recently. Right before MAM, I was looking into this dude, Israel Keys. I mean, this guy was very, very disturbing. It's like, if this is how real serial killers could emerge in our society and get away with it. we got damn lucky to catch him because he got sloppy. I mean, it was severe luck that this guy got caught. And it's scary to think. And this is what drew me to learning about these guys, because it's scary to think of what they're able to do. And if people don't educate themselves as to the methods of operation and stuff, it's up to us to be able to really sniff these guys out, folks, because they're not walking down Main Street banging a drum, you know, and advertising their activity. You got to look for the signs and the indicators, and that's how you catch these guys. And so it's important.
This was and criminology is more my wheelhouse than even law is, because I was a criminology. You know, I went to school for criminology. I wanted to be a behavioral scientist. I wanted to be a profiler. That was my goal in life. I was going to work for the FBI as a profiler because I had a combined sociology, criminology, and law. You know, and then I had abnormal psychology. So I set myself up for it, and then life happened.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this as an amateur since I was like grade school, pretty much.
Right,
you know, so so that's actually even more comfortable for me than the legal stuff is. So that's why. But so I might do that just for fun. I know that seems like a weird thing to do for fun, but it's hard to not be engaged with you guys. But I got to keep the stress levels down. So that's why it's like, So I can talk about serial killers for fun though. Anytime.
Yeah. Right on. So. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you everybody for being here. And we'll see you guys. If you haven't already,
see you guys later.
Please hit subscribe and head over to Tracie's channel, Basically a Lawyer, and hit subscribe there too if you haven't already. All right.
Thanks. Bye.
We'll see you guys.